Americans are having a tough time right now. This paper is for the college graduate that can't find a job, for the hardworking American whose bills have increased, and it's for everyone who's been impacted by the higher cost of living in the last 4 to 5 years. This is for someone who's cooked, someone who feels it's impossible to get ahead. It's not just you. My goal is to explain to Americans why it's hard to get ahead in 2026. There are over 20 sources in this paper. Part 1, it's not your fault. Part 2, it's going to get worse. Part 3, A New Hope. Disclaimer, this publication reflects the personal opinions of the author and is provided for general information and entertainment purposes only. It should not be relied upon as a basis for making financial decisions. Readers are solely responsible for their own decisions and outcomes. Part 1, It's Not Your Fault. Chapter 1, Americans are struggling. America in 2026. How bad is it? In researching, I found this report from FINRA Foundation titled Financial Capability in the United States. This is the sixth report in the series. The first was in 2009 after the financial crash of 2008. The findings here are fascinating. For the first time in 6 reports, Americans may be worse off than in the previous report. 26% of Americans are spending more than their income, the highest in any report. The previous high was in 2009 at 20%. I read this as millions of new Americans getting into debt every day just to live, eat, and sleep. If you are in this 26%, don't fret. It is not your fault, and you can get out of debt and be financially strong. Continuing down the report, 63% of Americans feel anxious when thinking about their personal finances. Of course, at all-time highs. 63%. House prices are near all-time high, and stock market as well. So why are people anxious? Everyone can see the inflation eating away at their savings. Most people just want to keep their homes and way of life. According to the report, over half of Americans say increased housing costs cause cutbacks in other spending. One of my favorite data points, and one I want to solve by writing this paper, is how confident are you that you can come up with $2,000 if an unexpected need arose within the next month? Ages 18 to 34 responded 46% could not come up with it. $2,000, basically a month or two of rent, would send millions of people into debt. This is the highest level since 2012, and $2,000 doesn't get you nearly as far as it did in 2012. People are worried and don't know how to break free. How do we get here? Chapter 2, The Event That Broke the Dollar. The biggest reason I believe we are in this situation, the dollar is not what it once was. In 1971, the dollar and gold were connected. Gold was set at $35 an ounce. Someone could exchange gold for dollars at the bank or vice versa. This meant the government had to print as many dollars as demanded to keep the price of gold at $35 an ounce. Gold is considered a good asset because there's not much of it and it is hard to get. Historically, it has been the store of value of the world. This asset tagged to the dollar was great, as inflation stayed around 2% because they can only pull around 2% more gold out of the ground every year. In 1971, that all changed. The dollar and gold became untethered. From now on, more and more dollars were created every day with no correlation to gold. So to review, an ounce of gold was $35. Sounds like not much. However, in 2025, an ounce of gold is $3,678, breaking all-time highs as of the day I am writing this. So if minimum wage was the same portion, 4%, of an ounce of gold today as our grandparents got in 1971, we would make, hold on to your hats, $168 an hour. Imagine a world where minimum wage is $168 an hour. I bet CEOs would get paid less. Obviously, the economy would be vastly different if minimum wage were $168 an hour, and not look at all like today. Because gold and the dollar were paired in the past, showing the depreciation of the dollar in these terms seems fair. If we stay on the gold standard, we would make around $2 an hour, but we could afford more. Think about it. In 1971, for 1 hour of work, you could buy 16 cans of tomato soup. Campbell's tomato soup. Today, the federal minimum wage is $7.25. For 1 hour of work, someone can buy 6 cans of soup. The soup is the same, the dollar is not. Notice on the chart the year 1971 is right when the price became unstable for tomato soup. Today our dollar is less than 10% of the value of that dollar from a little over 50 years ago. Chapter 3, Unaffordable Housing. If you are reading this, you are probably already aware of the massive problem that is home prices in 2026. There are many reasons to this, but I think one of the most putrid reasons is high home prices is institutional buying. From the U.S. Government Accountability Office, large-scale institutional buyers are a new phenomenon. Studies that Gao reviewed found that no investor owned 1,000 or more single-family homes as of late 2011. However, by 2015, these companies owned over 300,000 homes. These mega companies would outbid Americans, then turn around and rent them back to us for a profit. In 2022, the problem continued. In Atlanta, one of our biggest cities in the United States, 25% of all homes are owned by large institutional buyers. This is obscene, driving up costs for the hopeful first-time homebuyer. Some people who want to start a family and just have some space are being priced out by people in suits hoping to make revenue by the end of the year. Other major cities include Jacksonville, Charlotte, Tampa, and Phoenix are at 21%, 18%, 15%, and 13% respectively, are owned by mega companies. Unfortunately, this is not the only factor in housing affordability crisis today. In a report from the Housing and Urban Development Economic Division, a new factor on affordability emerges. From the report, when EMAD talks about housing affordability, we aren't just referring to home price and rents, although both have increased significantly over the past 5 years. Rather, housing affordability generally has been defined as the ability to spend no more than 30% of their monthly income towards housing costs. This is a great point. Once you buy a house, the costs are just beginning. When you read the data coming up, keep in mind it is all the cost of owning a home. As of the first quarter in 2025, home ownership was unaffordable in 17 states, compared to 2020 when only California was considered unaffordable. Even in places where home prices rise, housing can be affordable if income growth meets or exceeds home price growth. But that is not happening. For example, in New Hampshire, where the median income rose by 5%, home affordability declined because house prices and housing costs rose by 8%. In fact, home prices rose faster than incomes in every state from 2010 to 2020. Simply saving cash in a savings account to one day afford a house is a losing strategy in 2025, unless your job gives you a 10% pay raise a year, which does not happen for most people. The withering dollar with institutional pigs has left us in this situation. Buying a home is more difficult than ever in America. Buying a home seems so far away from most Americans, it is not even worth talking about almost. But it is the American dream to own a home. And I wanted to lay out why housing is unaffordable in 2025. It is not your fault that you cannot own a home, but saving dollars in the bank will not work in 2025. We need a new strategy. You must invest. Chapter 4, the 2020 dollar collapse. The dollar broke in 1971, but it turned into a free fall in 2020. Americans were locked down, and the government unlocked the money printers. Looking at the figure above, money supply stayed constant for about 20 years, even through the financial crisis of 2008. Continuing down the chart to 2020, where money supply increased by 30%. 30%! With that influx of cash, the government drowned Americans who do not have assets. In seemingly the blink of an eye, everything became 30% more expensive. $1,200 checks were given out in a modern let-them-eat-cake fashion. Check out the figure above, illustrating the price of grocery store food over the last 20 years. Similar to money supply, food prices stay flat till 2020. Focusing on March 2020 to January 2023, chicken, beef, milk, bread, eggs are up 33%, 13%, 29%, 38%, and 215% respectively. So if you not get a raise or do not have assets, eating normal everyday things costs 30% more than before the pandemic. This is where you'd think, okay, price will come back down, the pandemic is mostly over, things will go back to normal. That's where the trap is. Inflation never leaves, it rarely ever comes back down. This time is not different. Not only have they not gone down, they have increased at an accelerated rate. Back to the figure above. From March 2020 till today, an extra 2.5 years time to inflate, chicken, beef, milk, bread, and eggs are up 48%, 61%, 28%, 34%, and 134%. Since 2023, 2 costs more, 2 costs the same, and eggs dropped 80% after a staggering 215%. Real everyday foods up by over 50% in 5 years, 10% a year. Do you see how unsustainable this is? Real food with real nutrients. If you want to be healthy and live a strong life, you have to grow your wealth faster than 10% a year. If the cost of basic goods keeps rising 10% a year, then ordinary people must grow their wealth faster than essentials inflate just to stay in place. That's why investing is no longer optional. Here's the kicker. The government must keep printing money due to one reason alone, the aging population. Part 2, it's going to get worse. Chapter 5, the retirement wave. America's biggest generation, the baby boomers, is retiring. A census report called Turning Points for the United States, Population Progressions for 2020 to 2026, details American demographics in the coming years. From the report, the year 2030 marks a demographic turning point for the United States. Beginning that year, all baby boomers will be older than 65. This expands the size of the older population so that 1 in every 5 Americans is retirement age. From 2020 to 2030, there is an expected 30% increase in people aged 65 and older. This aging comes at a cost. A report from the Congressional Budget Office on long-term progressions for Social Security. This report gives a 75-year progression for Social Security revenue, tax income, and payments, government spending. Looking at the chart below, till 2008, revenue passed payments. The working class paid more into the system than retirees took out. This gave the government plenty of money to give back to the retired people giving Social Security checks. In 2008, that changed. The Great Financial Crash had many detrimental effects. One was that people lost their jobs, and therefore the working class paid less to Social Security. The government then had to spend more than it took in for the first time ever, marking a shift that never changed. In 2025, this government spending problem is set to accelerate. Looking back to the chart above, government spending accelerates from now until 2034, and notice how revenues stay flat. As I mentioned above, this is due to a massive number of baby boomers about to enter retirement age. It makes sense. Not only will the baby boomers stop paying into Social Security, but they are beginning to take out Social Security for themselves. This is what they have worked their whole lives for and deserve to be paid for, as the government promised. This is inevitable. The government has to spend and pay these retired Americans. While this factor is easy to predict, the future factors I cover are less well known and more difficult to predict. A new factor hurting Americans' pocketbooks is a secret energy crunch. Chapter 6. A new energy crisis. You've probably noticed the increase in your electric bill over the past few years, and there's data to back that up. From the Federal Reserve website, this chart titled Average Price Electricity per Kilowatt Hour in the United States, City Average. In August 2020, 5 years ago, the average kilowatt hour was 13 cents. Today that price has increased to 19 cents, a 38% increase, almost as bad as beef. There are a lot of factors to this. Two big factors I want to introduce: artificial intelligence and Bitcoin. These two groundbreaking technologies are amazing advancements in technology, but have come at a serious cost. According to a report from the U.S. Department of Energy, titled 2024 Report on U.S. Data Center Energy Use, increase in data center energy use is extreme. The report estimates that data center load growth has tripled over the past decade and is projected to account for data center expansion, rise of artificial intelligence applications, domestic manufacturing, and electrification of different industries. Every top company has a new AI strategy, whether it makes money or not, and this trend is set to continue. The report expands to say data centers consumed about 4.4% of total U.S. electricity in 2023 and are expected to grow to 6 to 12% of total U.S. electricity by 2028. Wow, over 10% of all U.S. electricity to AI. This will continue to drive up households' electricity bills. I regret to say there is another large consumer of energy growing in demand. A different report from the Energy and Information Administration titled Tracking Electricity Consumption for U.S. Cryptocurrency Mining Operations, it is estimated in 2024 cryptocurrency miners are using 0.6% to 3.2% of total U.S. energy consumption. Just like AI, it is not projected to slow down. Now, people are wrong all the time at projections, but if they are remotely close, energy costs are going up. Think about that effect. It's nearly 30% more expensive to simply keep the lights on. And with AI data centers, electric vehicles, industrial electrification, and Bitcoin mining all accelerating, the competition for power is only getting more intense, and the costs will get past the average American. Speaking of competition, AI is not only taking electricity, but is also taking jobs. Chapter 7. The Rise of Machine Competition. A new technology that broke records was the introduction of ChatGPT in 2022, the fastest growing user base ever, adding over 100 million users in the first 2.5 months. The previous record holder, TikTok, got smashed by 7 months. This technology is groundbreaking, mind-bending stuff. If you have not tried any AI chatbot like ChatGPT, Grok, or Gemini, I highly suggest you give it a try. This technology is revolutionary, and the big tech CEOs are pouring in more resources and energy, as you saw in the last chapter, to make their bots slightly better than the competition. This superintelligence is here, and only getting better. Many underestimate the amount of money and energy invested in AI. A report from the U.S. Government Accountability Office titled, Which Workers Are Most Affected by Automation and What Could Help Them Get New Jobs? Reports that workers with lower levels of education who perform routine tasks, like cashiers or file clerks, face the greatest risk. Researchers estimate that anywhere from 9% to 47% of jobs could be automated. Let's say only 9% of jobs are displaced. That's still a lot of jobs. During the Great Financial Crisis of 2009, the unemployment rate rose to 10%, just over the lowest projection of AI taking jobs. There's some data to back that up. Total job openings since ChatGPT was invented have steadily been falling. Looking at this chart from the Bureau of Labor Statistics about job openings, total non-farm job openings are plummeting. Since the debut of ChatGPT, December 2022, Job slips drop from 10,800,000 to 7,200,000. Now, to be fair, there's another major factor happening at the same time. The Federal Reserve raised interest rates from zero. That shift ended the era of free money for businesses. However, it's also undeniable that businesses are increasingly viewing AI as a substitute for human labor. Together, these forces have contributed to a dramatic change in the job market. Since ChatGPT's release, total job openings have fallen 33%. Now, I want to make an important point here. New technology bringing job uncertainty is a common occurrence in history, whether it was farmers losing jobs to the plow or manufacturing jobs being wiped away. The key is you have to be able to adapt. In those situations, there had to be signs that jobs were becoming uncertain. I think we could be in a similar situation today. The only constant in this world is that it is ever changing. If your job is in the sights of AI, don't be upset. You just have to adjust. If you don't invest, I think you should start. The job market in 5 to 10 years is highly uncertain, so start to invest now and let your money work for you. Chapter 8, Point of No Return. I believe all these factors I've laid out are at the point of no return. We live in the brave new world. This world is different than 1971. This world is different than 2020. This is one of the hardest times in American history to get by on just a salary. As I said, I'm not sure how this scenario gets any easier anytime soon. AI snowball is rolling down the hill and gaining speed. The dollar is dying at an unprecedented rate, not to mention a ton of other cost of living factors I have not mentioned, like Trump tariffs, credit card rates, insurance rates, healthcare premiums, gas prices, corporate greed, shrinkflation, plus everything, buy now, pay later, student loans, just to name a few. Part 3, A New Hope. Chapter 9, Beating Inflation. While the earlier sections of this paper focus primarily on data, the final section shifts towards interpretation and practical suggestions. By nature, any discussion of personal finance involves some degree of opinion and judgment. If you hire a financial advisor, they would tell you to buy a basket of US stocks, QQQ and SPY. Here are the returns over the past 5 years. If you listen to their advisor, you would just be treading water, not gaining any value. This is tough, so we have to be professional stock pickers and somehow beat the market? There's a simpler way. This is where I want to bring up Bitcoin. Bitcoin was born in the depths of the 2008 financial crash, with the quote in the first transaction, "Chance are on the brink of second bailout for banks." This quote is the headline from the newspaper The Times in January 3rd, 2009, and highlights why Bitcoin is made: the corruption of bank bailouts and money supply. While this is not the paper to go deep into Bitcoin, one of the best strengths of Bitcoin is a straightforward supply schedule. Every 4 years, the inflation rate cuts in half. That's it. It's that simple. This halving event has happened 4 times: 2012, 2016, 2020, and 2024. After the latest halving in 2024, the Bitcoin inflation rate is 0.8%, less than 1%. Above is the chart of the Bitcoin inflation rate. This simple supply schedule shines in contrast to the current US system, where they just print money and add debt willy-nilly. The red side prints for one reason, the blue side prints for another. Meanwhile, the people in between are drowning in 20% inflation. You can opt out of the craziness and buy Bitcoin. Funny enough, the time I'm writing this, 10/1/2025, the government is shut down because they cannot agree on how much money to spend. Below is a chart of the US inflation rate. I think Bitcoin is a solution to our problem. If you have dollar cost average Bitcoin since 2020, you'd be returning at 46% yearly, comfortably beating the 10% inflation. Bitcoin is basically unstoppable. Quantum computing is the only serious roadblock. The massive amounts of energy it uses makes the core code unchangeable. I think in my lifetime, Bitcoin will surpass gold to over $1 million a coin. Now that you know the best asset, the next step is removing the behaviors that sabotage your wealth. Chapter 10, Liabilities. A liability is anything that takes money out of your pocket. Yes, there are obvious ones like credit card interest, student loans, and mortgages, but there are other liabilities that people don't realize they're even doing that could save them money. Monthly subscriptions. Do you really need 3 streaming services? There's free entertainment everywhere. Cancel at least one streaming service and set a recurring monthly buy to your asset of choice. Sports gambling. It amazes me how many young people gamble large chunks of their income on sports. For one, you'll probably lose. 2, even if you win, you will gamble away the winnings next month and lose. I don't have a problem with sports betting, just bet small amounts. Cars are sneakily one of the most costly things a person can own. Insurance, gas, your fault accidents, not your fault accidents, parking downtown. Most of America, yes, it is necessary to have a car, but cutting out on a car can be financially beneficial. Student loans are uniquely the only form of debt you cannot declare bankruptcy for. With the insanely high price of university on top of an uncertain job market, You could argue that accumulating massive student loans is the worst financial decision a young person could possibly make, unless you have a clear career path, like a doctor or something akin. Mortgage. People take on loads of debt for an inflated asset, and then the costs only just begin. You're on the bill when something breaks. On the contrary, if you rent, the landlord is on the hook for most things. There won't be any surprise costs renting. Rent until you have a large asset base. Fewer liabilities, more assets. Chapter 11. Take the first step. A lot of people say assets are in a bubble, and I'd agree to an extent. But I'd argue we are more in the dollar death, with assets bleeding out for the foreseeable future. The saying holds true. Time in the market beats timing the market. If there is a bubble pop, this would probably be the best buying opportunity in our lifetime, as the dollar is destined for death, and we are destined for the digital age. A key part of Bitcoin is holding it yourself. Don't buy Bitcoin anywhere they don't let you withdraw. Chapter 12, Conclusion. Over the last 50 years, and especially over the last 5, America has drifted into an economic landscape that most people were never trained to navigate. The dollar we earn is weaker than the dollar our parents earned. The cost of necessities rises faster than wages. And the institutions we believe would secure our future are under unprecedented strain. None of this is the fault of the individual. It is the accumulation of structural decisions, demographic shifts, technical disruption, and monetary experiments that are now converging into a reality ordinary people must live through every day. What makes this moment uniquely difficult is that almost everything that used to work no longer does. Working harder does not guarantee security. Saving cash does not build a future. Earning a degree does not guarantee a job. Our parents could rely on institutions. Our generation must build resilience in spite of them. The world is transitioning from an economy based on stable dollars and predictable labor to one defined by scarce assets, powerful technology, and increasing competition. The people who adopt early will benefit the most, not because they are smarter, but because they recognized the shift and acted while others waited for normal to return. But this is also a moment that offers tremendous opportunity. The same forces making life expensive are the same forces creating massive potential upside for those positioning themselves correctly. If you are reading this feeling cooked, overwhelmed, or behind, that feeling is rational. You are living in one of the most economically challenging periods in modern U.S. history. But being behind is not a permanent condition. Invest in productive assets, reduce liabilities, build skills that make you economically relevant. Don't wait for policymakers, employers, or institutions to rescue you. That era is over. The next era belongs to people who choose ownership, autonomy, and self-direction. The economic story of the next 20 years is unwritten, and will be shaped by individuals who understand what is happening before the rest of the country wakes up to it. If you take anything from this paper, let it be this. You are not powerless, but the world will not change on your behalf. The first step is small, but it is years to take, and the sooner you begin, the more time is on your side. Thank you for watching. Please share with your friends and your feed. If you could give it a like, that would be greatly appreciated. I feel it is our duty as Americans to use our First Amendment to make our country a better place, and I hope to have done that today.